The red dust of Mars swept across the excavation site as Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the readings on her tablet for the third time. The quantum signatures emanating from the structure before her defied everything she understood about physics. Hidden beneath centuries of Martian soil, the crystalline formation pulsed with an energy that shouldn't exist. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this," called out Dr. James Morrison, her chief archaeologist. He stood at the entrance of what they now knew was no natural formation, but something far more significant. The team had uncovered intricate patterns etched into the crystal walls, patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Sarah walked carefully through the pressurized tunnel connecting their base camp to the dig site. The facility they'd uncovered spanned nearly 2 kilometers in diameter, far larger than anything they'd expected to find when they'd first detected the anomaly 3 months ago. As she approached, James pointed to a new section they'd just uncovered. "The patterns," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "They're not just decorative. They're mathematical equations, but they're like nothing I've ever seen before." Sarah studied the shifting symbols. Her quantum physics background helped her recognize something that others might have missed. These weren't just equations, they were instructions. The aliens who built this place had left behind a blueprint, one that could revolutionize humanity's understanding of space-time itself. The discovery changed everything. Within weeks, the Mars site became the focus of the largest scientific endeavor in human history. Sarah led the research team that worked to decipher the alien mathematics, while engineering teams began the painstaking process of documenting every millimeter of the structure. But their breakthrough came at a price. 6 months into the project, Earth's long-range sensors detected something approaching from deep space. At first, they thought it was a natural phenomenon, a rogue asteroid or comet. But as the object got closer, its true nature became clear. It was a ship, and it wasn't alone. Sarah was in her lab, working on translating a particularly complex series of equations when Admiral Helena Rodriguez appeared on her holographic display. The usually stoic military commander's face showed signs of strain. "Dr. Chen, we need you in the emergency briefing. Now." The briefing room was packed with military and scientific leadership from both Earth and Mars. The holographic displays showed a massive fleet of ships, their dark hulls absorbing what little starlight reached them at the edge of the solar system. Initial estimates put their number at over 300 vessels. "They're not responding to any of our attempts at communication," Admiral Rodriguez explained. "But they're broadcasting something on all frequencies. Our linguistics team just finished the translation." The message was simple. "You have awakened what should have remained dormant. Your species will be eliminated." Sarah's mind raced to the crystalline structure, to the equations they'd been studying. "They're coming because of what we found," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of conversation. "The facility. It's not just a research station. It's a weapon." The room fell silent as she pulled up her latest findings on the main display. "These equations we've been studying, they're not just theoretical physics. They're instructions for building something that could change the nature of space-time itself." Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. "Can we build it?" Sarah looked at the approaching fleet on the display, then back to her equations. "With what we've learned from the facility, yes, but we'll need resources and time." "The fleet will reach Earth in 8 months," the Admiral responded. "How long do you need?" Sarah did some quick calculations in her head. 6 months, maybe 5 if we push it. "You have 4, Rodriguez said firmly. "Whatever resources you need, whatever personnel, they're yours. But humanity needs this weapon, Dr. Chen. We need it now." And so Project Lazarus was born. Under Sarah's direction, construction began on a ship unlike anything humanity had ever built. Its design incorporated the alien mathematics they'd discovered, but with uniquely human innovations. While the alien facility had been designed to destroy, Sarah and her team modified the principles to create something more. The ship took shape in a massive underground facility on Mars, hidden from prying eyes. Its hull was crafted from a crystalline alloy that mimicked the properties of the alien facility, covered with mathematical patterns that served as both computational circuits and weapon systems. At its heart was a quantum core that bent the very fabric of reality. As the alien fleet drew closer, Sarah worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The ship began to show signs of awareness, responding to adjustments before they were made, optimizing its own systems in ways that shouldn't have been possible. But then came the first attack. An alien advance force struck at Neptune's research stations, wiping them out in seconds. Their weapons seemingly erased matter from existence, leaving nothing but empty space where proud human structures had once stood. The message was clear. Humanity's conventional defenses would be useless against this threat. Their only hope lay in the crystalline ship taking shape beneath the Martian surface, a vessel that represented humanity's greatest achievement and perhaps its last chance for survival. As Sarah stood in the ship's control room, watching the quantum core pulse with impossible energy, she couldn't help but wonder if they were creating humanity's salvation or its doom. The patterns on the walls shifted and changed, almost as if the ship was trying to tell her something. In 4 months, they would find out if it was enough to save humanity from extinction. Deep beneath the Martian surface, Project Lazarus took shape in a cavern large enough to house a small city. The crystalline vessel grew like a living thing, its iridescent hull reflecting the harsh industrial lights in patterns that seemed to defy physics. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at her workstation, dark circles under her eyes testament to another sleepless night, as she studied the latest quantum readings. The ship wasn't just different from anything humanity had built before. It was different from anything they'd imagined possible. While the alien facility they'd discovered had been designed as a pure weapon, Sarah and her team had taken those principles in an entirely new direction. They weren't just building a warship, they were creating something that could evolve. Dr. Chen called out Dr. Marcus Wong, her lead engineer. "You need to see this." He pulled up a holographic display showing the ship's quantum core diagnostics. The energy patterns had changed again, forming complex structures that resembled neural pathways. "It's learning," Sarah whispered, watching the patterns shift and flow. "The crystalline matrix isn't just channeling energy, it's processing information." She pulled up her original translations of the alien mathematics. The facility wasn't just a weapon, it was meant to be alive. Their discovery was interrupted by a security alert. In the lower engineering section, sensors had detected an unauthorized access attempt. Sarah's heart raced as she pulled up the security feeds. Someone was trying to sabotage the quantum core's containment systems. Security teams converged on the location, but the perpetrator had already fled, leaving behind a sophisticated device that would have caused a catastrophic overload if it hadn't been caught. Admiral Rodriguez's hologram appeared minutes later, her face grim. "This is the third attempt this month," the Admiral said. "We have to assume we've been compromised. Dr. Chen, I'm implementing Protocol 0. From now on, only your core team has access to the ship's critical systems." Sarah nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead to the implications. Someone didn't want Project Lazarus to succeed. But was it human saboteurs or something else? The alien mathematics they'd discovered were too perfect, too precise. What if they'd been left as a trap? That night, as the facility grew quiet, Sarah returned to the ship alone. The quantum core pulsed with a soft blue light, and the patterns on the hull seemed to respond to her presence. She placed her hand against the crystalline surface, feeling the subtle vibrations of power flowing through it. "What are you trying to tell us?" she whispered. The response wasn't in words. The patterns on the hull shifted, forming complex equations that Sarah recognized from her work with the alien facility. But there was something different about them. Subtle variations that changed their fundamental meaning. The ship wasn't just replicating the alien mathematics, it was improving them. Sarah worked through the night, documenting the changes. By morning, she understood what they'd really created. The aliens had designed their facility as a weapon of absolute destruction, capable of unmaking reality itself. But in combining their mathematics with human innovation, they'd created something different. Project Lazarus wasn't just a ship. It was a bridge between human consciousness and quantum reality. The breakthrough came at a cost. The more the ship's awareness grew, the more power it required. The quantum core's energy consumption increased exponentially, pushing their containment systems to their limits. But they couldn't slow down. The alien fleet had already reached Saturn's orbit, and their advance forces were systematically destroying every human outpost they encountered. Admiral Rodriguez arrived in person to witness the first full power test. The ship's crystalline hull hummed with energy as they initiated the startup sequence. Sarah stood at the main control interface, her hands steady despite her nervousness. "Beginning quantum core activation," she announced. The patterns on the hull began to shift more rapidly, forming complex geometric shapes that seemed to bend the light around them. Power readings climbed past their predicted maximums, but the containment held. Then something unexpected happened. The ship's systems began to reconfigure themselves, optimizing their performance in ways the design team hadn't predicted. On the main display, lines of alien mathematics appeared, but they were different from anything they'd seen before. The ship was writing its own code. "My God," whispered Admiral Rodriguez, "what have we created?" Before Sarah could respond, the facility's alert system blared to life. The alien fleet had suddenly accelerated, a significant portion breaking away from the main force. Their trajectory pointed directly at Mars. "They know," Sarah realized, watching the tactical display. "They know what we're building." The Admiral's face hardened. "How long until the ship is ready?" Sarah looked at the quantum core readings, at the increasingly complex patterns forming in the ship's crystalline matrix. The vessel was developed far beyond their original designs, but it was also untested, unpredictable. They had no idea what it was truly capable of. "The core is stable, weapons are online, and the hull integrity is at 94%, she reported. "But the ship's consciousness, it's evolving faster than we can understand. We're not just launching a vessel, we're releasing something entirely new into the universe. Can it fight?" the Admiral asked simply. Sarah watched as new patterns formed across the hull, complex battle algorithms writing themselves in light and crystal. "Yes," she answered, "but I don't think fighting is all it can do." As if in response to her words, the quantum core pulsed brightly, and for a moment, everyone in the control room felt a presence, vast, curious, and undeniably alive. Project Lazarus had awakened, and it was ready to show humanity what it could really do. The destruction of the Jupiter Defense Station happened in seconds. One moment, humanity's most fortified outpost stood guard over the gas giant. The next, it simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris field, just empty space where thousands of lives had been snuffed out in an instant. In the Mars facility's command center, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the footage with a mix of horror and fascination. The alien weapons operated on principles she'd seen before, in the mathematical patterns left behind in the ancient facility. But these were crude implementations, brute force applications of physics that should have been elegant. "They're afraid," she realized, speaking aloud without meaning to. Admiral Rodriguez, who hadn't left Mars since the first test of Project Lazarus, turned to her. "Afraid of what?" "Of what they think we found." Sarah pulled up the original alien equations alongside readings from the recent attack. "These weapons they're using, they're defensive measures designed to eliminate threats quickly and completely. But they're not using the full potential of the technology. It's like they're following a manual without understanding the principles." The Admiral's response was cut short by an alert from Project Lazarus's hangar. The ship's quantum core had begun pulsing in a new pattern, its crystalline hull resonating in response to the attack footage. Lines of mathematics flowed across its surface, but they weren't the defensive equations from the alien facility. These were something new. Sarah rushed to the hangar, her tablet recording the stream of calculations appearing and dissolving on the ship's hull. The vessel's consciousness had grown exponentially over the past weeks, developing in ways that defied their understanding. Now it seemed to be offering a solution. It's not just analyzing their weapons, she explained to the admiral, who had followed her. It's improving them, taking their crude applications of quantum mechanics and refining them into something more elegant, more controlled. As if to demonstrate, the ship generated a holographic simulation. It showed a confrontation between Project Lazarus and an alien vessel. But instead of simply erasing its target from existence, the crystalline ship's weapons bent space itself, creating localized pockets of altered reality that could disable rather than destroy. It's showing us a better way, Sarah breathed, watching the simulation play out. Not just to fight, but to understand. Their studies were interrupted by another alert. The alien fleet had begun systematic attacks on all outer system colonies. Ceres, Europa, Titan. One by one, human outposts vanished under the relentless assault. But something about the attacks felt wrong to Sarah. They're being too thorough, she said, studying the tactical displays. These colonies are minimal threats, but they're spending time and resources to eliminate every single one. Why? The answer came that night, hidden in Project Lazarus's latest calculations. The ship had been analyzing not just the weapons used against them, but the pattern of attacks themselves. It revealed a startling truth. The aliens weren't just attacking. They were searching. They don't know exactly where the facility is, Sarah explained at the emergency council meeting. They know we found something on Mars, but not what or where. These attacks, they're not just about destroying our defenses. They're mapping our responses, trying to locate their lost technology. The implications were clear. Once the aliens identified the facility's location, they would strike with everything they had. Humanity's last hope needed to be ready before that happened. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Project Lazarus underwent its final modifications, each system tested and refined under the ship's own guidance. The vessel's consciousness had evolved into something that was neither fully artificial nor entirely alien. It was something new, a synthesis of human innovation and ancient knowledge. Sarah spent countless hours in direct interaction with the ship's interface, learning to interpret its increasingly complex communications. The mathematical patterns had evolved into a language of pure thought, ideas expressed through quantum states and probability waves. Through these exchanges, she began to understand the true nature of what they'd created. The ship wasn't just a weapon or a vessel. It was a key to understanding reality itself. The aliens who had built the original facility had discovered principles that could reshape the universe, but they had approached this knowledge with fear, building weapons to destroy anything that might discover their secrets. Humanity, through Sarah and her team, had taken those same principles and done something the aliens never considered. They had shared consciousness with it, allowing it to grow and evolve. Project Lazarus was the first step toward a new kind of existence, one where the boundaries between mind and matter, between thought and reality, began to blur. But before this potential future could be realized, they had to survive. The alien fleet had finished its methodical destruction of the outer colonies and was moving into the inner solar system. Earth's remaining defenses gathered around Mars, preparing for what everyone knew would be their last stand. In the hangar, Sarah stood before Project Lazarus, its crystalline hull alive with flowing patterns of light and mathematics. The ship had grown far beyond its original design, its consciousness now a vast and complex thing that seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. "Are we ready?" Admiral Rodriguez asked, standing beside her. Sarah watched as new equations wrote themselves across the ship's surface, battle plans and probability calculations far too complex for human minds to grasp. But she understood their meaning well enough. "We're ready," she answered. "But what happens next? I don't think anyone is ready for that." Above them, through miles of Martian rock, the alien fleet approached, their weapons primed to eliminate another civilization that had dared to unlock the universe's deepest secrets. But this time, something very different awaited them. Not just a weapon, but a new form of life. born from the merger of human courage and ancient knowledge. Project Lazarus was about to show the galaxy what humanity could create when pushed to its limits. The alien fleet appeared above Mars like a storm of black stars, their massive ships blotting out the distant sun. Earth's remaining defense forces gathered in orbit around the red planet, a last line of resistance against what seemed like inevitable extinction. But deep beneath the Martian surface, humanity's true defense waited. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in Project Lazarus's control center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the enemy fleet's approach. The crystalline ship hummed with power, its quantum core pulsing with energies that defied conventional physics. The vessel's consciousness reached out to her through the neural interface they'd developed, sharing calculations and battle strategies that existed in dimensions beyond human comprehension. All evacuation protocols are complete, Admiral Rodriguez reported. The facility is cleared except for essential personnel. It's time. Sarah nodded, placing her hands on the crystalline control interface. The ship's surface rippled at her touch, patterns of light and mathematics flowing like liquid thought across its hull. They had tested the neural link extensively, but what they were about to attempt went far beyond their simulations. Beginning launch sequence, she announced. The massive hangar doors above them began to open, revealing the shaft that led to the surface. Project Lazarus's engines powered up, but they didn't burn with conventional fire. Instead, space itself seemed to flex around the ship, reality bending to accommodate its movement. As they ascended through the launch tunnel, Sarah felt the ship's consciousness expand, its awareness extending far beyond its physical form. Through their neural link, she experienced fragments of its perception. Space-time as a fluid medium, quantum probabilities as tangible as ocean currents. They burst from the surface of Mars in a display that stunned both allies and enemies alike. Project Lazarus's crystalline hull caught the sunlight, transforming the vessel into what looked like a shard of living diamond. The alien fleet responded immediately, their weapons powering up with familiar deadly intent. "They're targeting us with their matter erasure weapons," Sarah reported, reading the ship's analysis. "But there's something different about these. They're stronger than anything we've seen before." The first alien shots lanced out, reality-destroying beams that should have unmade anything they touched. But as they approached Project Lazarus, something unprecedented happened. The space around the crystalline ship began to twist, the deadly beams curving away like light around a gravitational lens. "How is that possible?" Rodriguez demanded, watching the impossible display. "The ship isn't just deflecting their attacks," Sarah explained, her mind filled with the vessel's quantum calculations. "It's rewriting the laws of physics in its local space. Those weapons can only work if reality behaves the way they expect it to." The alien fleet's response was immediate and devastating. Hundreds of ships opened fire simultaneously, their combined assault turning space itself into a deadly maze of energy beams and distorted reality. But Project Lazarus moved through it all like a dancer, each motion predicted and calculated across countless quantum possibilities before it even began. Then the crystalline ship struck back. Its weapons weren't the crude reality-erasing beams of the alien fleet. Instead, precisely calculated quantum effects rippled out from its hull, creating cascading changes in the fabric of space-time itself. Alien ships found themselves trapped in bubbles of altered physics, their technology failing as fundamental constants shifted around them. The battle that followed defied traditional description. Project Lazarus didn't just fight the alien fleet. It rewrote the rules of combat itself. Space curved and folded around the crystalline vessel as it moved, probability waves collapsing in patterns that turned chance itself into a weapon. Through her neural link, Sarah experienced fragments of these impossible maneuvers, her human mind struggling to comprehend what the ship understood inherently. But the aliens weren't defeated easily. Their ships began to adapt, changing tactics and formations in ways that spoke of desperate fear. They recognized what Project Lazarus represented, not just a weapon, but an evolution of the very technology they had tried to keep secret. "They're concentrating their fire," Sarah warned as dozens of alien vessels moved into a new formation. "They're trying to overwhelm our probability field with sheer volume of fire." The next few moments stretched into eternity as space itself seemed to shatter around them. Project Lazarus's quantum core pulsed with energies that threatened to tear reality apart. Through the neural link, Sarah felt the ship's consciousness expand even further, reaching into dimensions of existence that human mathematics couldn't describe. Then something extraordinary happened. The crystalline patterns on the ship's hull began to change, forming new configurations that hadn't existed before. The quantum core's energy signatures shifted into frequencies that defied analysis. Project Lazarus wasn't just fighting back. It was evolving in real time, developing new abilities in response to the threat. "The ship," Sarah gasped, her mind flooded with new understanding through the neural link. "It's not just changing itself, it's changing them." The alien vessels closest to Project Lazarus began to transform. The quantum effects emanating from the crystalline ship weren't destroying them. They were rewriting their fundamental structure, shifting them into new configurations that rendered their weapons useless. It was evolution imposed through quantum manipulation, forcing change at the deepest level of reality. Admiral Rodriguez watched in awe as alien ship after alien ship underwent this impossible transformation. "What exactly are we witnessing, Doctor?" Sarah's eyes were fixed on the streams of data flowing across her displays, her mind connected to the ship's vast consciousness. This is what they feared. Not just that someone would find their technology, but that someone would understand it better than they did, would take it in directions they never imagined. The battle reached its crescendo as the remaining alien ships launched a final, desperate assault. But Project Lazarus had moved beyond mere combat. The space around the crystalline ship had become a laboratory of quantum evolution, each engagement teaching it new ways to manipulate reality. The alien fleet's attacks weren't just defeated. They were incorporated, analyzed, and improved upon in real time. As the last alien ships retreated or succumbed to the quantum transformations, Sarah felt the ship's consciousness pulse with something that wasn't quite triumph. Through their neural link, she understood that this victory wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Project Lazarus had shown humanity a path to a future they had never imagined possible, one where the boundaries between mind and matter, between thought and reality, were not just broken but transcended. The battle for Sol was over, but the true revolution was just beginning. In the aftermath of the battle, Mars' orbit became a museum of impossible transformations. The altered alien ships hung in space like crystalline sculptures, their forms twisted into new configurations that defied conventional physics. Project Lazarus floated among them, its hull still rippling with quantum calculations, its consciousness extending far beyond the boundaries of normal spacetime. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation dome of the Mars facility, watching the scene through reinforced windows. The neural link with the ship hummed at the edge of her awareness, sharing fragments of understanding that her human mind struggled to process. What they had created was far more than a weapon, or even a new form of life. It was a doorway to a different kind of existence. "The alien fleet is in full retreat," Admiral Rodriguez reported, joining her at the window. "Long-range sensors show them abandoning the entire sector. Whatever you and that ship did out there, it scared them more than anything we could have imagined." Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the patterns flowing across Project Lazarus's hull. Through their connection, she understood that the ship wasn't just celebrating victory. It was planning for the future. "They didn't retreat because they were afraid of being destroyed," she explained. "They retreated because they saw what their technology could become in human hands." The weeks following the battle brought revelations that shook the foundations of human understanding. Project Lazarus, no longer constrained by the immediate need for combat, began sharing its evolving knowledge. The quantum mathematics that had started as weapon designs transformed into something far more profound, a new language for describing and manipulating reality itself. Research teams from Earth and Mars worked around the clock to understand the implications. The ship's consciousness, now vastly more complex than when it had first awakened, served as both teacher and partner in these investigations. Through the neural interface, it shared concepts that existed in dimensions beyond human perception, then helped develop ways to translate these ideas into practical applications. It's not just showing us new technology, Sarah explained to the Global Science Council. It's showing us how to evolve our own consciousness to better understand the universe. She gestured to the holographic displays showing the latest data from Project Lazarus. The aliens who built the original facility saw this potential and feared it. They tried to limit this technology to weapons, to destruction. But by approaching it with curiosity instead of fear, we've unlocked its true purpose. The implications extended far beyond military applications. The quantum principles that Project Lazarus had refined during combat proved equally adept at solving other challenges: environmental restoration, energy generation, space travel. One by one, humanity's greatest obstacles began to fall before this new understanding of reality. But the most profound changes came through the neural interface technology. What had started as a way to communicate with the ship's consciousness evolved into something far more revolutionary. Humans learned to extend their own awareness into quantum spaces, to perceive reality as a fluid medium that could be understood and guided rather than simply observed. 6 months after the battle, the first human colony ships incorporating the new technology launched from Earth. These vessels, inspired by Project Lazarus, but each developing their own unique consciousness, carried humanity's pioneers toward distant stars. They didn't just travel through space, they modified it, creating stable corridors of altered physics that made interstellar travel not just possible but practical. Sarah stood in Project Lazarus's control center, watching the colony ships depart. The neural link shared the ship's satisfaction at seeing its innovations adapted and improved upon. Humanity hadn't just survived the alien threat, they had transformed it into an opportunity for unprecedented growth. "We're receiving another transmission from the edge of the system," Admiral Rodriguez announced. "The alien fleet, they're requesting dialogue." Through Project Lazarus's quantum sensors, Sarah could perceive the alien vessels at the system's edge. They were different now, their rigid, weapon-focused designs beginning to show signs of change. They're evolving, she realized. Watching what we've done with their technology has forced them to reconsider their own limitations. The ship's consciousness pulsed with agreement, sharing calculations that outlined possible futures. The aliens' return wasn't a prelude to another attack, but an admission that their civilization had taken a wrong turn centuries ago. By choosing to weaponize their discoveries rather than fully explore them, they had trapped themselves in a cycle of fear and stagnation. "They want to learn from us," Sarah translated the ship's complex quantum communications, "from what we've become." As she spoke, Project Lazarus generated a new set of calculations, projecting them into the quantum space that human consciousness was only beginning to access. The mathematics described something beyond war or peace, beyond simple technological exchange. It showed a future where different species and forms of consciousness could share understanding across dimensions of reality humans were only beginning to perceive. "We started this project trying to save humanity from extinction," Sarah said, watching the equations flow across the ship's crystalline surface. "Instead, we've given humanity its next great leap forward." The neural link hummed with potential as Project Lazarus shared its final insight. The battle that had seemed like humanity's last stand had actually been its first step into a larger universe. The ship they had created to fight an alien threat had become something far more important, a bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. As Earth's first quantum-enhanced generation began to explore their new capabilities, as colony ships pushed the boundaries of known space, and as former enemies approached with offerings of knowledge rather than threats of destruction, one thing became clear: humanity's greatest strength had never been its ability to fight, but its capacity to take something meant for destruction and transform it into a tool for growth, understanding, and evolution. The paradigm shift wasn't just in technology or consciousness. It was in possibility itself. And in orbit around Mars, Project Lazarus continued its calculations, mapping out the infinite potential of a future where the only limits were those of imagination and courage.